So on Thursday, earlier in the week, I recorded some days ahead of time because I knew my schedule was going to be pretty intense. And then yesterday I had some travel arrangements that were supposed to get me back into town in time to record the video, and everything went wrong, plane went wrong, etc., etc. And so I wasn't able to record, but I had seen a video and I posted it. I've seen a few of you seen it. Maybe the rest of you didn't recognize that I posted it, but if you go look on Facebook and you'll find it. But it was a really interesting video. It wasn't a Christian video. It's just a remarkable story of somebody's courage and determination to live above the circumstances that he'd suffered through. This was a 99-year-old man who calls himself the happiest man on earth, and I think he may be. I don't know, but it's a very touching video. If you haven't seen it, go back and look if you would. But he made a decision. He made a choice to be happy, and I think a lot of the times the decisions we make are really important, So watching that video and then living through the events that I've been through the last couple of days made me realize that the decisions we make are really, really important. I think sometimes we just we don't realize the impact of today's decisions on tomorrow. I know that from time to time I've seen folks who I see today are living with the results of decisions and choices that they made yesterday. And the fact is that everything that you do today reflects on tomorrow. Said another way, what you're experiencing today is based on the choices and decisions you made yesterday. And sometimes those are results that restrain us. We can't do what we want to do because of those decisions, and sometimes we're empowered today to do what we want to do because of the decisions that we made yesterday. So I was thinking about what we pray about. When we sit down and pray, I don't know about you, but I've got a list of things that routinely I would pray about. There's things that, Lord, help me to understand your word. Help me, Lord, to serve you. Help me, Lord, to be a channel of blessing. I don't know, many of you are praying, Lord, you see the physical restraints, the physical condition that I'm in. Lord, I pray you'll move. Others of you I know have been praying, Lord, just help me get through this family situation, or help me get through this financial situation. But I don't think I've ever prayed, Lord, help me today to make good decisions. And how about that? Wouldn't that be a neat prayer? Because the reality is we need his wisdom. We need his guidance. And I know that oftentimes when you're facing a significant decision, you pray and you ask God for his guidance. I know that for me, I often say, Lord, if this opportunity that I see in front of me is of you, then open those doors and let me have the assurance that you're behind it. But Lord, if it's not, then I want you to close those doors. Sometimes his direction can come in the form of a stop as well as just the form of a go, and sometimes the stops are pretty important. Some of the decisions that we make despite the warnings that God gives us in his word. Sometimes there are clear guidelines that many times people ignore. I'm not going to teach about that, certainly not today, but I wanted to read to you a story. You would know the story. This is not a Bible story. This is a news story, and it relates to something that happened in 1986. I'm sure you'll remember the story of Chernobyl. You remember the story of Chernobyl and the nuclear disaster that took place there? It was in northern Ukraine. Doesn't feel like that long ago, does it? Maybe it does. I mean, when I think 1986, what's that? That's 36 years ago or something. So, but anyway, let me read to you an extract of the report. There were 2 electrical engineers in the control room that night. And the best thing that could be said about what they were doing was that they were playing around with the systems. They were performing what the Soviets later described as an unauthorized experiment. They were trying to see how long it would take for a spinning turbine to freewheel when they took the power off of it. So, to quote the report, it says, now taking the power off that kind of nuclear reactor is a difficult and dangerous thing to do, because those reactors are very unstable in the lower operating ranges. And in order to get the reactor down to that kind of power, they could perform the tests that they were interested in performing. They had to override manually 6 separate computer-driven alarm systems. So one by one, the computers would come up and say, stop, don't go, dangerous, don't take that action. But one by one, rather than shutting off the experiment, they kept shutting off the alarms and kept going. You know, I think, you know the result of that, right? It was the worst nuclear accident that's ever occurred. There was a city that formerly had 55,000 people in it, and now that city is abandoned. Well, what's the point? The point was that they thought they knew better. Those engineers that were playing that night said, oh, no, we're okay. If we shut that alarm off, we know what we're doing. But the reality is, many of us make the same kinds of decisions in our life. You know, I was talking to somebody who was in financial trouble, and they had made a decision that they couldn't afford to tithe. So they didn't, and so now they shut off the system, and now they're dealing with the results of that. You know, I've heard it said that the decisions that we make impact our destiny. They determine destiny. And so our life today will be a direct result, our life tomorrow will be the direct result of the decisions we make today. So I thought I would talk to you about it. I'm not going to talk about it a lot today, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to read 5 verses, and I want you to think about it, and I'll come back tomorrow and sort of tell you some of what is hidden. Maybe it's not that hidden, but I'm going to come back and talk to you about it. So is that okay? Give you a bit of homework. This is Ruth, chapter 1, the first 5 verses. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left, and her 2 sons. She was left along with her 2 sons, and they took unto them wives of the women of Moab. And it tells you, I won't try and pronounce, well, I guess I can. The name of the one was Orpah. I never can say that. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. But then in verse 5 it says, and Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So what's the story? The man moves, ends up in Moab, his sons marry, and then both he and his sons pass away. So what's the story there? Well, I'm going to come back and tell you tomorrow, but I want you to read that and see if you can anticipate what I'm going to try and explain to you tomorrow. I want to encourage you in your prayers when you're praying and you're asking God to help you, to help guide you. I want to challenge you to say, and Lord, help me today to make wise, godly decisions. Help me to be aware of when I'm making a decision or I'm thinking about something and your word is clear. And Lord, help me, quicken your word to me at that time. And so I'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about it. But thanks for joining me today, Thursday. And I'll be back tomorrow, Friday. The Lord bless you. Have a great day. And I'll see you then. Bye-bye.